Afternoon. Welcome to our webinar on the Oxford Impact Investing Programme. And our special guest today, Luther Ragin Jr., CEO of the Global Impact Investing Network at GIIN, talking about defining impact investing and terms. We have quite a group registered for today, so we're just going to give a few people a chance to register and work through any technology issues which they may have, and then we'll start in earnest in a couple of moments. So we have a couple of speakers on the line. So my name's Steve. I'm Steve Brewster. I work at the Saïd Business School in our executive education team. And what we have tried to do here is to put together the most comprehensive executive program to help people work through impact investing in a structured way, drawing on academic research and also very practical professional experience as well. So we reflect that by on the line today. We have our program director, Gail Peterson. So Gail has 25 years of experience of advising foundations on philanthropy and also in investing. She is an associate of the Saïd Business School, and she is also a managing partner of a consultancy firm called Partners for Change. So Gail has just spent a large part of the last year traveling the world and interviewing almost 1,000 people who work in the field of impact investing. So in terms of first-hand research, then she has got very much the word on the street, as it were. And from industry, we're very privileged today that Luther Ragin has joined us from the Global Impact Investing Network, and he will be talking through his presentation in a couple of moments' time. I will let Gail do a formal introduction to Luther in a couple of minutes. So just a couple of housekeeping notes as we go through. So there you will see on your screen that there is a tab at the side for asking questions. Please feel free to key in questions at any time when they occur to you. How we will address those is that we will go through Luther's presentation. That will take about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we will direct those questions to Luther at the end of that time. Because there are quite a lot of people registered, then we will keep mics on mute just to keep the feedback to a minimum, to keep the audio as clear as possible. So if you do, please enter any questions in the questions panel on the side. That would be ideal. So we have about 40 people online now, which is what we are expecting probably from the number which we had registered. So at this point, I am going to hand over to my colleague Gail Peterson, who is the program director for the Impact Investing Program, just to spend a couple of minutes briefly introducing the program and then handing over to our guest speaker for today. So Gail, we should be able to hear you now.
Oh, great. Thank you, Steve. It's wonderful to be here, and thank you all for participating. Steve, do you want to move through the slides?
Yeah, sure.
And again, I think that our objective is, as a leading academic institution, to build strong partnerships with organizations like GIIN. And so it's really a pleasure and honor for Luther to join us and be one of our partners. I think our goal is to, again, create a vibrant community of practice by having common definitions. I think this is a rapidly evolving field, and it's really important that we evolve as a team and in a collaborative way. And GIIN is a global leader, really helping refine and define the future of impact investing and finding common language and nomenclature for us to begin to explore and strengthen the field. Our program is, Steve, you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. Our Oxford Impact Investing program is really focuses on creating a learning journey that is to inform, inspire, and equip on individual, organizational, and societal levels. And so we focus on, again, putting people and planet at the center of decision making, as well as financial reward. And again, creating a global learning community through our program to help people navigate the ecosystem, whether they're coming in from foundations or traditional financial business sector, how we create a leadership in the area of impact investing that can best address complex issues. Our program focuses on entry to exit and beyond, and we look at ways to maximize impact, both ethically and in terms of doing specific deals. Again, we provide measurement options for our participants to think through and shape and develop on their own. Next slide. And with that, I'd like to introduce Luther. He is, I would say, one of the titans and founders of impact investing. And it's a pleasure and a joy to have him help us find common nomenclature for the field. And with that, Luther, I turn it over to you, and we're looking forward to hearing your words of wisdom. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Gail, and thank you, Steve, and good afternoon or good morning or good evening, depending on where you are. And thank you to the Saïd Business School for this invitation to participate in a foundational discussion about essentially what impact investing is, and to develop a movement toward a common definition that can inform the later work of the executive education program, which I believe all of you will be participating in due course. So thank you again for the opportunity to be with you today. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Hi, Luther. Sorry.
Next slide, please.
Yes, just changing over. Sorry about that. Just to give you a little bit more information. So we have people who are registered for the Impact Investing Program starting next week. We also have some people from the program last year and some other interested parties as well. So not everybody on the call is coming next week, but a good number of them are. Just for your information.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have alumni as well as new students.
Correct.
Perfect. So I'd like to, if I could, just spend a moment of introduction telling you a little bit about the organization that I lead, which, as Gail mentioned, is the Global Impact Investing Network. This organization was launched 5 years ago this coming September at the Clinton Global Initiative for the purpose of helping to accelerate the practice of impact investing globally, to increase its scale and effectiveness, and to build critical infrastructure necessary for the growth of the field. Now, what do we mean by building critical infrastructure? Part of that infrastructure includes promulgating a catalog of generally accepted performance metrics that leading impact investors use to measure social, environmental, and financial success, to evaluate deals, and grow the sector's credibility. That catalog is referred to as IRIS, I-R-I-S, and is one of the particular contributions of the GIIN to the question of what defines impact and how do we hold ourselves accountable for impact as we make the types of investments going forward. A second piece of critical infrastructure that the GIIN has had a role in building is a database referred to as Impact Base, which is a database of impact investments accessible to accredited individual as well as institutional investors. And this database is intended to basically give a very broad overview of the kinds of impact investments that exist today that impact investors can take advantage of, that can invest in. And this is a part of what is an effort to reduce the barriers to entry to this field, to make transactions and partnerships easier to achieve, and generally provide more accessible information as a part of the creation of a more coherent marketplace. A third piece of critical infrastructure is our work around research, outreach, and advocacy. And then finally, creating investor-focused zones of collaboration, such as through the GIIN's Investors Council, which is a group of 56 global impact investors who cumulatively manage $12 trillion in assets, of which $60 billion US represent impact investments. And these institutions, which vary from banks to private foundations to pension funds to insurance companies to impact asset managers of various kinds, work together and collaborate to help build the necessary information, the necessary platforms of cooperation necessary to move the field forward. That group of 56 impact investors is joined by another group of more than 130 GIIN network members who are also very engaged in learning about impact investing and how that can make a decisive difference going forward. But all of this depends critically on the definition of impact investing, which provides clarity as to what it is, what we seek to accomplish, and how best to build best practices. So that is our focus at this point. Steve, next slide, please. The initial definition of impact investing that the GIIN promulgated some years ago is before you presently. And I'll just read through it briefly and make a few annotations for your benefit. Impact investments are investments made into companies, organizations, and funds with the intention to generate social and environmental impact or benefit alongside a financial return. Now, there's a lot there just in that one paragraph, so let me unpack it a bit and we'll talk about it further as we go on. Impact investments are made into companies, organizations, and funds. One of the key issues there is that an impact investment can be made into a for-profit entity, a non-profit entity, or into a fund or other intermediary. There is nothing intrinsic in impact investing that limits the types of organizations that can receive an impact investment. Secondly, you see underscored that these investments are made with the intention, and these are specifically the intentions of the investor to generate social and environmental benefits. And we'll talk further about that as we go on, alongside a financial return. And this is critical because, in a sense, this differentiates impact investing from, for example, grant making or more traditional philanthropy, where there is not necessarily an expectation of a return of principal or a return on principal in the conduct of that activity. So the distinction with impact investing is that it is in fact investing, and there is an expectation of a financial return. The second paragraph in this initial definition goes on to talk about that these investments can be made in both emerging and developed markets. They target a range of returns from below market to market rate, depending upon the circumstances and the economics of the transactions involved. Let's unpack that second paragraph a bit. In saying that these investments can be made into both emerging and developed markets, what we're saying is that this is in fact a global practice. Impact investing is not exclusively focused on emerging or pioneer markets, and it's not exclusively focused on developed markets, but represents opportunities for investments globally in developed markets, particularly in their underserved components, as well as in emerging and frontier markets. Furthermore, that these investments can reflect a range of return expectations from intentionally below market to market rate. And we'll talk further about that and the segmentation of the field around where people tend to engage depending upon the type of investor and the type of institution. So this has been the sort of organizing framework for an impact definition for a number of years. And then, Steve, if you would flip to the next slide. This year, we made some enhancements to the definition to draw out greater clarity around the definition and to make it essentially more robust and useful for practitioners in the field. And we did that by highlighting that there were 4 essential components that we believe for impact investing. And they are intentionality, which we've alluded to previously, investment with return expectations, a range of return expectations and asset classes, and a commitment to impact measurement. And those 4 areas we will dive into now. Steve, next slide. So what do we mean by intentionality? Intentionality is essentially the intent or objective of the investor to generate social and or environmental impact through their investing activities. These investments are made into enterprises of various kinds, as we've discussed, and investors may have a variety of objectives in terms of what they are seeking in making those investments. They may be made into enterprises and funds that expand access to critical goods and services or generate positive impact through their operations. For example, investors may seek to use the investments to increase access to financial services or education or healthcare or affordable housing or quality employment by underserved populations. And investors may also seek to invest in solutions aimed at mitigating the negative effects of climate change and environmental degradation. And as I pointed out previously, this activity may be focused on developed or emerging markets or both. So with respect to intentionality, you notice that we're speaking of the intent of the investor to generate this impact. And it's done through a variety of mechanisms, which include the business processes of the organizations into which that investor invests, and the kinds of sectors, products, and services that, and who has access to them, who are the beneficiaries that may be of consequence as well. One question which comes up from time to time, and I think it's an important one, is when we speak of the intention of the investor or the objective of the investor, does that necessarily imply that the investee or the organization, whether it's a social enterprise or a fund or a for-profit enterprise, does that enterprise necessarily, is that enterprise necessarily an impact investor itself? Does it necessarily have to conceive of itself as an impact investor? And although the intention of the investor is clear here, you will find that many investors will partner with organizations or enterprises or funds that do not expressly consider themselves impact investment vehicles, but because of their business process or because of their sectoral focus, there is an alignment between the investor's interest in achieving a social environmental benefit or change and the business model adopted by the investee or the recipient of the capital. Let me give an example. You may very well have a private sector company that operates in the development of water infrastructure in emerging countries. You may have an investor, an impact investor, who is very keen to include and assure that water access and clean water access specifically is increased for people at the base of the pyramid, the poorest of the population. It may not be the intent of the company that that's a part of its business model, but in accepting an investment from an impact investor and assuming there's alignment around those objectives, the impact investor may undertake that this is an impact investment because the water objective, which is its objective, and the expansion of the water excess into emerging markets, particularly in the base of the pyramid, is a necessary and important social and environmental benefit, and one for which they feel this is consistent with impact investing as a strategy. The entity that's carrying out that work may or may not identify as an impact investor, but its goals, in this case, are aligned. Steve, next slide, please. The second criteria is investing with return expectations. And this is, again, distinguishing impact investing from grant making, although many impact investors are private foundations. And that's also a subject of some confusion, because when people see private foundations as impact investors, the assumption is grant making is the principal tool that they are using. I would say that it's important to note that while grants are not themselves impact investments, they can play an important role in enabling impact investing. For instance, through incubating early-stage business models, or providing certain forms of credit enhancement, or providing technical assistance or funding needed for research and development by social organizations. So grant making is important, but grant making is not impact investing. Again, impact investing necessarily implies the expectation of a return of principal in the normal course of events, and most likely a return on principal. I show on this slide some of the members of the GIIN Investor Council, just to give you a sense of the wide variety of institutions that consider themselves, in an important part of their practice, to be impact investors. And you will note here, among them are organizations such as foundations, such as financial institutions of various kinds, pension funds, development finance institutions, and others. Some of these investors invest with the expectation of only sub-market returns. Others invest with the expectation of market rate returns. Others are able to invest in both ends of the continuum. So you will find that under the broad tent of impact investing, that there are various investor segments that have different views about return, what type of return is sufficient for their particular objective. They have different views about liquidity. For example, there are investors who are very committed and willing to invest in 10-year private equity transactions, and there are investors who are very committed to investing only in those transactions that provide liquidity in a shorter time frame. So within this broad tent, again, if you think about it, there are tables or segments within the tent of investors who have particular needs and particular aspirations based on their particular mandates. Steve, next slide. This slide is focused on the third point of the definition, and that is the range of return expectations and asset classes. As you see, and I've used this slide to highlight some recent information from a GIIN JP Morgan survey of 99 impact investors around the world. And what this survey asked, among other things, is what asset classes are you making impact investments in currently? And as you will see, it spans quite a range, with most investors having exposure to private equity, private debt, and equity-like debt. But there are also those who invest through guarantees, through deposits and cash equivalents, through public debt in the fixed income market, real assets, and indeed even public equity. And in this survey, what was also interesting is that the majority of investors, at least of those surveyed, had a principally sought market rate returns. Although, as you see, there were a significant number who accepted below market returns in carrying out their investment mandate. So the market is diverse. The number and type of institutions that are engaged are diverse. The ways in which people reflect their intent and the kinds of sectors they engage in can produce investments from a variety of investment asset classes and with a variety of potential return expectations and return hurdles. What often comes up as a question is, well, why would anyone invest with an intention to earn a below market rate of return? And I think that what you will find in impact investing is that there are many investors who may wish, for example, to support higher risk, earlier stage social enterprises in challenging markets, or to invest pursuant to various regulatory mandates, which often offer concessionary returns or below market returns. There are other investors who may choose to finance the expansion of proven business models in order to achieve scale, or to invest, for example, in credit-enhanced transactions in the expectation of market or near market rate returns. So impact investing offers the opportunity for investors with a range of return expectations and a range of interest in asset classes to participate consistent with their geographic and sectoral interests. Next slide, please. Finally, and this, although last, is by no means least important, and that is from our perspective at the GIIN, and I think this is increasingly considered a hallmark of other practitioners as well. You can't really be an impact investor without a fundamental commitment to impact measurement. Because essentially, if the test of impact investing is the intent of the investor, the manifestation of that intent is, in fact, in the measurement and reporting of its objects. And there are several reasons why impact measurement, in our view, is important. The first, frankly, is because impact measurement and being able to demonstrate success around social and environmental objects is itself a way to increase the amount of capital that is attracted to the space and the strategy. Secondly, we believe very strongly that it is hugely important to be transparent and to be accountable around the impact that an impact investor is seeking. And thirdly, we believe that impact is in fact a value driver. And as a value driver, it offers benefits not only to the beneficiaries who are the recipients of goods or services, to the organizations that make these investments, but also to the investors themselves. So a commitment to impact measurement to us drives capital, assures transparency and accountability, and also is itself a driver of value and effectiveness with benefits to beneficiaries, to intermediaries, as well as to investors. One of the things that the GIIN will be doing and is doing presently as a part of the G8 Social Impact Investing Task Force, which I understand, given that their meeting today is now the G7, but previously the G8, that this task force is looking at the promulgation of general guidelines for impact measurement and reporting for investors globally. So a working group has been constituted with representatives from each of the participating countries, consulting with a wide range of experts in the field, and those who also operate in more traditional corporate social reporting, with the idea of promulgating guidelines that will help inform the level of practice and set the level of practice globally for impact measurement going forward. That's presently part of the process. We hope to see guidelines published in the fall of 2014, and we think that this will be a very important way of advancing impact measurement as a component of impact investing best practices. So with that, let me stop and invite your comments or questions at this time. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Luther. And we do have a few questions that are coming in. So let me read out a couple of these to you. So the first one is around the impact-based site. It's from one of our colleagues in Monaco, I believe, saying, on the impact-based site, is there a database of funds only, or also direct investment opportunities?
Most of the vehicles, investment vehicles listed on impact base are funds or pooled investment vehicles. So they're not individual company investment opportunities, but pooled investment vehicles of various kinds. It could be a fund, it could be a holding company structure, it could be a nonprofit structure, it could be various things, but they generally are aggregated pooled investments. And presently there are some 300 such investments that are profiled in impact base. There are some 1,500 accredited individual as well as institutional investors that use that database for their purposes of due diligence and also helping to access opportunities. Impact base has approximately $24 billion in investments that are profiled, of which 17 billion consists of committed capital from impact investors. So I hope that's responsive to that question.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. There are several questions actually. So another one specific towards the to the GIIN and regarding impact measurement. I'll read the question out. My name is Charles Erkelens. I'm interested to hear more about the GIIN regarding impact measurement. How far is GIIN in creating a scale in comparing the social and environmental impact of investees? Should there also be a rate of return with regard to the S&E impact that an investment is generating?
The GIIN's primary activity on impact measurement has been around the development of IRIS, which, as I mentioned, is a catalog of generally accepted performance metrics. Our objective has been, and there are some 450 metrics that are widely accepted across a range of geographies and sectors, which are currently used there. And what it facilitates is the ability of investors to choose metrics that meet the investors' expectations and the investors' needs with respect to the social and environmental benefits they seek, and at the same time do that in a manner that's consistent with, in a standardized way, with other investors, so that when people are talking about the carbon reduction, or when they're talking about job creation, or when they're talking about other metrics, that they're actually using language that's consistent from one investor to the other. The purpose of the GIIN in this way has been to create this taxonomy, to create this catalog, which allows investors flexibility to adopt metrics that are most appropriate to the investor's needs. At the same time, we do point out what are the prevailing or more typical leading practices in particular sectors, in particular geographies, with respect to metrics. So people are able to learn what other people are actually tracking who have similar investment interests to themselves. But the GIIN itself does not prescribe metrics that any investor should use, but instead creates a toolbox that investors can construct an impact measurement program best aligned with their needs and consistent with emerging best practices in the field.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we have another question regarding a similar field of impact reporting. A question from Catherine Miles, who asks, to what extent are you collaborating with the Global Reporting Initiative on impact measurement and reporting?
Actually, the level of collaboration is increasing, both with respect to GRI, organizations such as SASB, the Carbon Disclosure Project, and many others, as we seek, many of these reporting platforms are discovering that many of their users who had previously been very active in corporate social responsibility or similar initiatives are increasingly finding a significant part of what they're doing is also impact investing. So there is increasing efforts to increase the convergence and collaboration between IRIS and impact measurement broadly and GRI, SASB, Carbon Disclosure Project, and others. This is actually likely to accelerate as a part of the work that's being done in the working group of the G8 task force, where the objective in developing in the short term broadly utilized guidelines also has the longer term objective of creating more convergence between the various reporting platforms over time. So we're very hopeful that that collaboration will increase, but it certainly has begun.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question regarding IRIS, please, from Aditi Shrivastava in Mumbai. Does IRIS measure the additive impact of a particular investor or an investee?
In terms of the test of additionality,
yes.
What would happen but for?
Yeah. Let me read that question to you again. So it says, does IRIS measure the additive impact or effect of a particular investor on an investee? Sorry, on an investee.
Yes. IRIS metrics can be used to demonstrate additive impact for particular investors, yes.
Okay, thank you. And I guess a related question here, how does your work extend to adoption of enhanced impact measurement in emerging markets?
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
Yes, sure. How does your work extend to adoption of enhanced impact measurement in emerging markets?
The metrics that are used are many of them are particular to emerging markets. Some are not. But there is a substantial body of work that's done in the context of emerging markets to determine which metrics are appropriate and which metrics add value to investors and investees. So when you say enhanced metrics, I'm not particularly certain what you mean by that, but in general speaking, the metrics that we promulgate are metrics that, within the emerging market context, have been developed with emerging market practice very clearly in mind.
Okay. And a question from an emerging market from Saurabh Rijal, who's in Nepal and is joining us on the program next week. His comment is, I was interested to know whether IRIS will ultimately produce the measuring tools similar to financial that we are using to compare between the various investment options. How can an impact in a sector in being compared with that in another sector?
Mm-hmm. Typically, the comparisons are within sector as opposed to across, although there's some very interesting work being done where, using this catalog, there are cross-sectoral comparisons. IRIS already has a number of financial measures that are part of the 450 social and environmental metrics, and there are others that will be added. But with the work that's been done specifically under the auspices of the G8, one of the things that increasingly is of import and concern is being able to do more integrated reporting of financial as well as social and environmental objectives. And IRIS is beginning to accommodate that objective.
Okay, thank you. And a question, we've got another 3 or 4 questions, so we'll kind of close it after that, I think, if that's okay with you. This one is from Jennifer Webb in the GRIIN Foundation, Uganda. How does IRIS account for niche social enterprises or potential portfolio company with very specific impact metric. Do you think IRIS could ever overlook key benefits of certain enterprises?
I think no impact measurement or reporting system is perfect. And there is certainly limitations to any reporting protocol that exists. IRIS attempts to be dynamic. It attempts to recognize that what may be measured and counted in period one over a period of time may change. For example, let me give you an example. In the U.S., for example, there was a time where access to capital by low-income communities was a principal metric that many impact investors focused on. Well, over time, there became a focus on, rightly so, the quality and the appropriateness and nature of the capital that was being provided to these communities, recognizing that some forms of capital were not helpful but harmful. So impact measurement systems have to grow and take advantage and learn what the limitations are, what unforeseen consequences may develop as a result of that, and that's one of the reasons with IRIS that we maintain an active advisory body as well as sector-specific working groups that are constantly working to refine and improve the metric systems. But I do want to emphasize again that IRIS is a toolbox, is a catalog, that the choice of the choice of metrics at the end of the day is the choice of the investor. The investor is deciding what best meets its intent, its object, with respect to the investments it's creating.
Okay, thank you very much. We do have a couple more questions. Gail, just so you know, your line is open as well, so if you would like to contribute to any answers here, then that would be very welcome as well. We have a question here on a slightly broader scale. So what is the difference between ESG or social responsible investment and impact investing? How can impact investing be considered a completely different asset class from ESG or SRI?
Well, I think that, let me talk a little bit about what some of the differences are historically. Social investment and ESG traditionally has focused on the public equity asset class, although not exclusively, which is the globally second largest asset class, and has generally utilized negative screening, although not exclusively by any means, to achieve its objects. Impact investing is intended to be far more direct and creating direct benefits around the objectives of investors. So it generally focuses not on what is excluded, but what is selected, what is in fact the subject of, the object of the investment. So I think over time, ESG has evolved as well. Social investing broadly has evolved. So it's moved beyond the focus on a single asset class being public equities. It's moved beyond the tool of negative screening to positive screening, best-in-class approaches, ESG integration and value, etc. And I think there are certainly areas in which impact investors and those who use ESG broadly actually converge. So I'm not necessarily looking to create distinctions, only to point out that generally speaking an impact investment is intended to be a direct investment creating a specific benefit. And in doing that, it may be in any number of asset classes. But it is generally, in that regard, different and distinct from most but not all of the strategies used by some of the ESG and social investment practitioners. I don't think there's any inconsistency or incompatibility at all. And we frequently find, for example, in the Investors Council, people who use all of these strategies in various ways. So what we're pointing out is a specific opportunity to create impact and to generate investments that support that impact directly and specifically.
Thank you very much. We'll do another two questions, I think. So a question just in from Sihul Trusor in Ethiopia, who's going to be joining us in Oxford next week, regarding the GIIN network. Does the GIIN network support investments in developing markets for funds managed by professionals, but with a limited management track record? The big impact investors tend to oversee real impact investment opportunities.
You know, one of the interesting programs that we are just in the process of launching at the GIIN is a program which is designed to work with early stage funds and fund managers, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia. This is a result of our partnership with DFID in the UK, where we're looking to help create more investment-ready, more impact investment-ready asset managers in those geographies specifically. So in that context, we are now putting together a series of modules that are focused on increasing the capacity of fund managers in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, specifically around fundraising, around integrating environmental and social and governance factors into their evaluation process, around operational issues that make for a successful fund, etc.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps we'll take this question. It's quite a long one. So a question from Mary Elizabeth Redpath in Geneva, Switzerland, who is interested in the intersection of grant making at a large scale with impact investment. So Mary is with the Global Fund, which is a multi-billion-dollar financing mechanism to fight AIDS, TB, and malaria, and says a large percentage of our grant-making portfolio goes towards the purchasing of commodities, for example, medicines, which means that pharmaceutical companies are benefiting. Are you aware of existing efforts to invest for impact in local or regional pharmaceutical initiatives, which could benefit from that spend?
Yes, indeed. In fact, we are, and a number of our Investor Council members are very active in strategies around vaccines, development of new medical products, particularly affecting people at the base of the pyramid. So that is something that perhaps offline would be delighted to discuss with you and perhaps make introductions that may be helpful going forward.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'll introduce you and Mary afterwards offline. I think that there are a couple of other questions, but perhaps we can follow on those later on. There's one here specific to GIIN, so perhaps we'll make this the last question. As part of the research that GIIN is undertaking, is there any work being done to identify any unique or emerging governance issues associated with impact investing?
Governance issues specifically?
Yes.
We presently have launched an initiative with Cambridge Associates, which will be looking over the next year at financial performance generally of impact investment vehicles in a wide range of geographic markets, sectors, and return expectations. That will also include an effort to identify the drivers of performance, and clearly governance, among other factors, will be aspects that will be investigated. So I think that we'll have more to say about that as this research goes forward and we begin publishing. We expect the first installment to be in the latter half of 2014.
Okay, thank you. And thank you very much for taking the time to go through those questions for us. I know that's difficult. Gail, are you online, please?
I am. Luther, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the progress that GIIN is making. Again, I think that the program that we're offering builds on GIIN's work, as well as looks at, when we think about performance measures, unintended consequences. So we actually have a tool that we're sharing with participants about how to minimize harm using a UN human security frame. So that is, again, looking at how you examine, accelerate positive impact and minimize negative of investments. So all good. And we look forward to continuing a partnership with GIIN. And Steve, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I don't think so. Would you like me to summarize on the program, or are we...
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yep, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So thank you again, Luther, for being with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah. Just to summarize on the executive program which we offer here at the Saïd Business School. So we run this program once a year, and this webinar has formed part of the preparation for that. So we have a number of participants online, and we have recorded it for those who couldn't make it today as well. The actual program runs in Oxford next week, so we'll be live this time next week, starting on Sunday, the 30th of March, running through till the end of Thursday. We have 35 participants signed up from almost 20 different countries, and they represent the whole spectrum of the impact investing sector. So we have some people from banks, some financial institutions. We have a number of foundations. We have some consultants. We have the World Bank. We have some social entrepreneurs from five continents. So we are very excited to be able to welcome them here next week. Just to say that if there are people on the line who are considering coming for next week but haven't been able to commit the time yet, that we do have another 2 or 3 places available, and you would be welcome to take them, but we would need your application over the next day or so. The timetable for next week is in front of you. I won't go through that session by session, but needless to say that we go through the whole range of the impact investing spectrum, starting with a overview of some of the reports that have been coming out around impact investing, to set the context and really to identify the myth, the reality, and where the opportunity is for that. And then as we go through the week, we will build on that opportunity by having small group sessions of 5 people each, with a particular tutor to work through a blueprint for people's plan alongside peers at a similar level of experience or in a similar sector. We have an excellent range of guest speakers as we go through the week. So to thank Deborah Schwartz in particular from the MacArthur Foundation, who will be talking about some deals which they have done in the MacArthur Foundation, based in serving the underserved in the US in the real estate market, and also John Duong from the Kellogg Foundation for his support and contribution to this program as well. We have guest speakers from a number of emerging markets, including Sam Nwanze from Hares Holdings in Nigeria, and Daniel Itzo from Vox Capital in Brazil, as well as Geeta Goel from the Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, who is active in investing in India. And I mentioned that we have a participant from the World Bank who's in India, and we have a couple of other participants from India coming as well. From the UK side, there are a number of pioneering people and examples which have come out of the UK market. So Gale's co-director on the program is Professor Alex Nichols at the Skoll Centre for Social Entrepreneurship, and he'll be going through several case studies, both himself but also with colleagues as well, such as Jonathan Jenkins, who's the CEO of the social investment business, who's one of the investors for Big Society Capital that you may have heard about here in the UK. We will also be looking at social impact bonds with Kieran Boyle from the UK Cabinet Office, who set up the first social impact bond, and going through a deal looking at co-investment with Rod Schwartz from Clearly So. So we'll be taking a look at the UK market, the US market, and the emerging markets, and comparing and contrasting them. Just to say as well that obviously networking and co-support for participants is also very important. So in addition to the school-based sessions, in the evenings we will also be having a series of networking events and dinners at university sites and colleges across the week. So we do have a couple of spaces left, so if you would like to register for that or have any questions on that at all, then please do contact me. My name's Steve Brewster. My details are on the screen in front of you. I'll be very, very pleased to help you. With that, I would like to thank Gail. In fact, I'll hand over to Gail to thank Luther formally and sign off. Thank you. Gail, are you there? I'm not sure she is. So, Luther, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again for your time in answering those questions today. We do have a couple of other questions as well. I can talk to you afterwards, and perhaps we can send those on or introduce you to the individuals concerned. But thanks again for your help, and we look forward to staying in touch and to hopefully seeing you back over in Oxford at some point.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and thank you all for your participation today.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We're going to sign off now. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.